Can't imagine them being worse than these ones to match up with this. Okay, so here's the Civic. We have different wheels on it now. These are my T37s. I like the wheel and the color, but I don't think the copper works with the white. Now these are the wheels it was on the car. However, the two that was on this side of the car, I was doing a pull the other day and then I smacked the brick that was laying in the road. So the lips on them are both cracked. And I took them to a place to have them repaired, and they said they're going to obviously weld it up and then machine it back down, and then they have to repaint the wheels. Now the problem is, even though they'll color match repaint them, you're going to have two brand new looking wheels, and then you're going to have two that's, these wheels are not bad, but they're not brand new. They do have some scuff marks here and there. This one actually has a little bit of hidden damage on one of these spokes that I colored in with a Koki. But while we're getting the two damaged ones repaired and painted, we can just as well take these in and have them painted as well. And then I thought about painting them white. Now this is a bit of an aggressive wheel for me to have it painted white, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to paint it white. I don't really like the black wheels. I think they look really nice, but I don't like black wheels because you can't see the details, especially in pictures or at night. The wheel kind of just fades away, where a white wheel will stand out really nicely, and I always wanted a Civic with white wheels. Now I do think TEs will look nicer white than the RS2s, but then again, this is my favorite wheel and I do want them to be white. So I'm going to send these two in tomorrow as well, and they're all going to get painted white, completely repaired, which is good because this one had a slight bit of face scratches and stuff, and the other two of course has damage from hitting a bloody brick that was laying in the road. Okay guys, we are back and the wheels are back. I think they look really nice. Came out a bit better than I thought. I thought it would be a little bit too aggressive with the white, but yeah, I do like how it came out. I'm going to put wheels on these rims now, so I taped up the center so I didn't scratch it with the balancing machine. We have these semi-slicks. These are Bridgestone RE55Ss, and when I googled them I figured out that they were discontinued quite a long time ago. So I came back to look at the date stamp, and yeah, that's the date stamp over there. So if these end up not really working out, we'll probably just do a burnout with them. But for now, I can't imagine them being worse than these ones. So these are the ones that were on the car in the front, and even though they are pretty new still, they are quite old. I think these are 2015, and the surface has gone quite hard. And yes, we do have a traction issue now with the new shorter ratio gearbox, so these tires might help. If they don't help, we'll do a burnout, throw them away. Okay, we are back from the tire shop. They fitted the semi-slicks for us. Now this is a 205 and this is a 215, so this should be 10 millimeters wider than this one. However, if you look at this, this is more like 30 millimeters wider, but it doesn't really matter. This one is obviously going in the front, this one's going in the back, but before we just put them on, we have to probably take care of this. So if you guys look over there, this car did sit for 5 years, and that is quite rusty and nasty. So we're going to repaint the calipers first before we put the new wheels on. The front as well, it's quite bad, it's quite rusty. Calipers are not really nice. Never been painted though, that's quite rare. Anyway, a couple of days ago I found this brake upgrade on Facebook Marketplace, which is pretty cool. I thought this was maybe just a Mini Cooper rotor, but it's a lot bigger and it has a different offset. So the offset's about 8 millimeters difference, and then you get this bracket which faces the caliper out and forward to match up with this. So this does use the exact same caliper, it just changes out the rotor. Now I will say this is a slightly upgraded brake already, it's not the smallest one. You do get Civics with much smaller calipers in the front and drums in the rear. This one luckily has discs at the back and the slightly bigger calipers in the front. So apparently this is a straight bolt on. You just take the stock rotor off, put this one on and bolt the caliper on using this bracket, and everything should work exactly the same. Now yes, this should still be an upgrade because you get a lot more rotor surface area. They are also slotted, and because the caliper is spaced outwards, it will give the caliper a bit more leverage over the wheel. Okay, so I have the car on jack stands. I took both wheels off just so that you can work on both of the calipers at the same time. You may be waiting for paint to dry over here, and then you can just go over here to work on this one in the meantime. Anyway, if you come over here, it's not too bad. The caliper doesn't look too bad. What is really bad is the brake pad. Now, if you come to the back, this is actually where it's quite bad. You can see this brake rotor is very rusty. Now, the caliper is not so bad. It's kind of like more corrosion kind of thing. but once this is painted, it'll look really nice. We are also going to paint the rotor here on the top and over here. Not the same color, but just so it doesn't rust again. And then in the front, we don't have to paint the rotor because, of course, we are replacing it with the new rotor. And of course, even though this one is not perfect, it doesn't have any rust on it. Now, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use these two files. I have a big one and a small one. This is probably too big and this is probably too small, but I am just going to go over the cast mark. So there is a cast mark over here. I'm just going to go over that cast mark and smooth it out, because once you paint these, especially if it's a light or bright color, that stuff will stand out a lot more. So I'm going to use a file just to smooth out the surface a little bit, just because it'll look a lot nicer once it's painted if you do a bit of prep now. Okay, and that's it. So we're done with the files. What I'm going to do now is take this steel brush, go over the whole thing to get it nice and clean. We have some brake and parts cleaner. I'll probably spray this on a rag and then just clean off this whole thing. Then of course it's time to put on the new rotor. That's quite easy. 2 Phillips head screws here and you can take the rotor off. Of course you have to take the caliper off first, and it has 2, I believe, 17s at the back. Take the 2 17s off and the caliper will be able to come off. Once the caliper is off, the rotor can just be taken off. So this is actually a really easy brake upgrade, because you do not need to even disconnect the brake lines, don't need to bleed it afterwards. Everything is just going to go on like this. Okay, so I quickly put the rotor on just to show you guys. Here's the old one. Came off quite easy, surprisingly easy. Nothing was seized or stuck or too tight. Also, sometimes these like to rust themselves to the hub, but in my case it came off really easy. Like I said, this is a 305mm, where this one is a 260mm. So this is a lot bigger. Anyway, I'm going to take it back off again because we have to paint the caliper. Okay, so we are ready to paint. I scuffed everything, cleaned everything with the brake cleaner. I have 2 bags here. This one is just taped on with 2 pieces of tape, and then this one is to protect the control arm and the lines. Now the rest of the stuff is just taped off lightly. I am going to use this piece of cardboard over here so I don't get overspray on the bumper, but I mean, other than that, we are ready to go. I taped off the back of the caliper because it's quite big and I don't want to paint the whole thing. I'm only going to paint the section that you will actually see. Okay, there we go. Coat 1 is finished, and yes, it's the same color as the engine bay. And of course at the back now we need to do this one. So I need to sand down all this rust, sand down and prep the caliper, but this is a lot of work, so I'll probably do a before after. So here's the before. Okay, so this is what it looks like all prepped. All the rust that's been removed, well, as good as I can. There's still a lot of pitting in this because this car stood for very long, so the pitting in this rotor is actually quite bad. However, you know, another 5,000 miles and that will be all polished out by the pads. So now I'm going to repaint the rotor black and then mask everything off so we can paint this blue. I'll show you guys once it's done. Okay, so this is where we're at. I took the bag off, but the caliper still has the tape all over it, but this is basically what it looks like. As you guys can see how smooth this area is here where I did all the filing. Doesn't have those horrible cast marks all over it anymore. There's a little bit of it still left. Here's the one at the back. Just finished painting it now. I'm gonna have to go to the shop because I need new brake pads. This brake pad is completely done. Okay, we are back and we got new brake pads. Now these are quite cheap, but the guy said they don't make a lot of dust, and I think not having a very dusty pad is going to be important because we have white wheels. So this might become a disaster, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, I let this sit overnight, so Add some tape over the piston at the back, just because I don't want paint on that. And then also have tape over the rubber piece over here. Okay, so interesting development. It looks really nice, but now that everything is bolted on and tight, I can't actually turn the rotor. Now if you look over here, right on this corner, you can see it's actually touching. So because this is a much bigger rotor, a much bigger circle, the inner circle of this caliper is not exactly the same. So Honda only clearanced that, up to there. You can see where they clearanced it up to. It's up to there. And we basically need it to be clearanced up to here. Okay, so the caliper is off again, and like I said, it's just the edges here. What I did is I loosened the bolts and then spun the rotor to see where it's touching. And as you guys can see, that shiny part over there, it is literally just touching on this edge here, and the same on this side. It's just touching on this edge where you can see the paint's been removed. So I have the grinder here with a grinding disc. I'm literally just going to nick off this edge here, same with the other side, and then the rotor should fit perfectly. Looking at the bracket, you'll see it simply bolts to the caliper, and now this becomes a new bolting hole for the knuckle. So it does space it out by 10 mil. There we go, the white wheels are on. I think the color match is pretty good. It does look like the wheels is a bit more white than the car, but it could just be because the car is dirty and the wheels are not. But overall, looking at the calipers over here with the big brakes, I think it looks really good. Now, one more thing I want to try out is these lug nuts. So I have these D1 Specs in blue. I did consider using them a while back. I bought them quite long ago. Then we have the black ones on the car. I must say I'm kind of feeling the black ones, but let's just see what the blue ones look like. We also have new center caps, because the silver ones doesn't go with everything. So I just got new black ones. Also I only have 3 of these, so I had to buy these as well. But let's see how these blue ones go. Okay, so I'm going to replace the rest of them and then put the center cap on, and then we can compare to the other side, which still has the black ones. It's not a perfect match, but it's very, very close. But anyway, let's also try and fit the center cap. Oh yes. So it's either this, or we can come here to this side. Over here we have the black lug nuts and the black center cap. I don't know, I actually like both of them. I think it matches the tire nicely, having it all black in the center. But then again, to me this stands out a bit more. It's a bit more crazy, matching the caliper. To be honest, I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm currently taking the wheel off so I can check if that caliper needs some more clearancing. However, I've noticed now that these blue wheel nuts are actually not the same as the black ones. The thread is exactly the same, however the cone at the end So if you compare the cone at the end between the black one and the blue one, you'll see they are not the same. So when you use these, they actually just end up touching on this edge here, and you can see all 4 of them actually end up getting damaged. They were kind of loose, so when I took them off now, they were not very tight, because I assumed they were just damaging this area and then loosening themselves. With these ones that's been on the car for very long, you can see they don't have damage at all, just because this sits against the mag nicely, where this doesn't. It just ends up touching on the edge there. So we can't use these ones, so we are going to go with the black ones. Okay, so here's the situation. You guys can see the outside of the rotor is touching the caliper, just this edge here. And if you go over to the caliper, the top seems fine, but if you look at the bottom, there's a new piece of wear here, so it's touching the caliper over here. However, it's only doing it once it heats up. So if you get on the brakes, it obviously heats up the rotor, expands it a bit, and then it starts making contact over there. So I'm going to clearance that a slight bit. Okay, so here's my thoughts on the whole setup. The brake rotors are great, can't complain about it. They do what they're supposed to do. They don't really make any noise, or you don't really actually notice a difference in pedal feel or anything like that. Then again, you shouldn't, because we don't even open the braking system. It's exactly the same caliper. All we did is change the pad and the rotor. We did have to clearance the caliper a bit, just because the rotor's a lot bigger, but that was quite easy to do. The wheels came out great, calipers came out great. Really happy with it overall. Now I do have a few complaints. These tires are very sticky, so they pick up all the rocks. So when you're driving on like a residential road where there's not a lot of traffic, it'll pick up all the stones and fling it under the fenders. That's a bit annoying. It makes a lot of noise, and I'm sure you are collecting rocks in here, and sometimes they even end up laying down here. Secondly, there's also a bit of contact. Let's see if I can show you guys in here. So in there, come on, focus. In there, the wheel is now touching the chassis, so I'm losing a lot of turning circle. So if you are cool with rocks being flung around and your turning circle being reduced, these would be perfect. But for me, the sacrifice is just a little bit too big. They do also rub on the fenders, so you would have to lift the suspension, and I really do not want to lift the suspension on the car. If this was a dedicated race car, I wouldn't mind the stuff at all, but this is a street car, so I'm going to get some just new street tires for it, a decent quality street tire, and these will be dedicated to when I actually take the car racing. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one.